Nostalgic movie review.
Nerdy.
Married man.
And hello, everybody.
Welcome back to New Nostalgic Movie Reviews. I'm David.
And I'm Steven.
And this week we're looking at a video game adaptation. We're doing Silent Hill, which is a 2006 film. It's rated R. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Yes. Synopsis of the movie. A woman, Rose, goes in search for her adopted daughter within the confines of a strange, desolate town called Silent Hill.
The cast list for this, we got Radha Mitchell, Sean Bean, Laurie Holden, Jodelle Ferland, and Alice Krieg.
Spoiler alert, but guys. Sean Bean doesn't die in this film.
What? There's a glitch in the Matrix, everyone.
Everything has gone to hell. What is going on?
This movie is surprisingly widely considered a really good video game movie adaptation. I don't know how much I agree with that. I really enjoy the movie. I have like a soft spot for this movie. It's like a guilty pleasure. I feel like it is definitely on the top half of video game adaptations. I don't think it's terrible, but it's definitely not amazing.
For me, this is one of the better video game adaptations for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what happens with this movie is, for me especially, this movie suffers so greatly in the first third in the setup of this movie.
Yeah.
Once they actually start to Silent Hill, this movie becomes incredible. The ending of this movie is incredible. It is visceral. It is in your face. It is atmospheric. It is scary. It is tension building. It is beautiful in so many ways, and it does a lot of what the games do. I will also take this with a grain of salt for everybody. I have not actually played any of the Silent Hill games.
Wait. What?
I have never played a single second of any of the Silent Hill games. I have watched Jin play a little bit of the second one. That is the only knowledge I have of the entire franchise.
I'm sad. The first 3 games, 100% worth it. This movie pulls a lot from the first game for everyone questioning. It follows mostly the story beats from the first game. There are definitely a lot of differences. And then there are also some of the creature designs that are actually pulled from the second game, which is fine. But it is mostly focusing on the first game.
Yeah. Because Pyramid Head's only in the second one, or comes into the second one. Not the
He's
first one, right?
introduced in the second one because he's one of the... I really...
Fair. It's fair.
Yeah, he comes in the second one because he is a manifestation from James Sunderland from that game. So, but I mean, they bring him in this. I think the main version that the Red Pyramid is in the movie is because he is one of the most recognizable video game scary creatures ever created, even outside of Silent Hill. But in Silent Hill, he is the most recognizable creature.
Like, even for me, I've always known who Pyramid Head is without ever playing the games. Like, he is such an iconic character that I understand why they probably put him in there.
Oh, yeah.
For that reason, because it gets people like me like, ooh, wait, there's a movie that has Pyramid Head? Maybe I'll watch that.
I know that thing.
I know that guy.
So before we get into spoilers, I guess the movie it's entertaining. Like Steven said, the first third is a little tough, and we'll talk about that in spoilers. But I would recommend this movie, especially to video game fans and horror fans.
Yeah.
Like, it's not amazing, but I think it is a great, solid film. There are definitely some glaring issues, but I think the movie is more charming because of it.
For me, I think this movie is definitely worth a watch, and it's something that I definitely will watch again, probably in my lifetime. It's something I don't know if I'll buy, but it's something that I probably will watch multiple times throughout my life. It's something that when people talk about video game adaptations, I will bring this one up as a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that it has really good feel, and I know that there was a lot of love for the franchise when making this, whereas I can't say the same for a lot of other video game adaptations, where they just try to make it its own thing and not actually pay homage to the source material.
Yeah, I know the people that worked on this movie were mostly fans of the game, and they really wanted to bring their ideas to life through it. And I think they did. They had a good balance of story beats from the video game without direct stealing. Or
Yeah.
I guess stealing's not the word. Without directly copying or like making a one-to-one remake. Uh, but they had a good balance between the video game stuff and their new story points, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, and I think it's a really good time for us to talk about this movie and stuff too, with the second game being remade pretty soon, and the original director of this movie actually working on a sequel for the games, like based off of the second versions of the games as well. So this director is coming back for another Silent Hill movie in the same franchise, and I'm really stoked for it. So
Yeah, and I think that it'll be a good makeup for the sequel to this movie that came out a
yes,
while back. But anyway,
we want to go right into
yeah,
our downfalls like usual.
sure. Let's go on to
Uh,
downfalls.
for me, I'm gonna start this off with just saying the movie starts off so stupidly. I hate the first third of this movie so much. I wanted to turn this off during the first third of this movie. The movie starts off so badly with a couple peeking out of their house, screaming for their daughter, and only the mother runs down the river, under a bridge, towards a giant waterfall cliffside, and then sees the little girl that somehow looks like she came from the opposite side of the river and she was sleepwalking, and the little girl stops and takes a moment at the edge and starts speaking and saying random stuff about Silent Hill, and gives enough time for the mom to get there to tackle her before she dives off the cliff. And like for some, and they have a fight with the parents talking about what to do with their daughter, and the dad's like, we need to send her to a hospital. We need to get medication. We need to get her help. Like, we need to do,
Psychiatric help.
yeah, like she needs actual help. She's an adopted daughter. We don't know what happened in her life or what her trauma is. Like, we don't know. We need to get her help. And that makes a lot of sense. Really good logical thinking. Then the mother just I do not get where she's coming from with a lot of these things. Like, oh, she keeps talking about this place. I need to kidnap my daughter. Well, before I even get to the kidnapping of the daughter thing, I hated that they don't like they know they have a daughter who sleepwalk and tries to leave the house. They have no alarms in the house set up. They have no way for her to stop her from getting out of the house.
You'd think they probably would take her to a doctor to see if they can help with why she's sleepwalking or find ways to manage it.
And they said that they had tried medication before, and the mom said the medication didn't work.
Yeah.
But to the same extent, like then yeah, like I said, she decides to just randomly kidnap her daughter, go against her husband, take a bunch of cash out, and just leave and not tell her husband where she's going. Doesn't answer her phone, doesn't want to accept any of his text or phone calls. It just has him wondering what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
And go to this town that she found on a ghost town website, talking about towns that were demolished and is haunted and all these other things. She's like, take my 11-year-old daughter there. Like it's so the motivations for the characters at the beginning of this movie are so dumb.
Well, there's that movie trope, and I guess it's mostly in horror movies, but it's in other movies too, where it's in order to find exposition, gotta go check the good old internet,
Yeah.
check Google or Bing.
Oh, and then go to the town near that town and ask them about it, and everyone's like, "Oh, don't go there.
Don't go there. Oh, what town? Oh, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, that's dangerous. Don't go.
And then I also hate that they stop at this gas station to bring in this female cop. And this cop's being really weird. She sees a daughter and a mother consoling her daughter, and the daughter being like, Mommy, I don't know what's going on. Mommy, who's doing this? Mommy, I need help. Mommy, mommy, mommy. And then she like goes to go check on the little girl and ask her how she's doing. And then she faces her down to try to like give her a ticket and just see what's going on or where she's going.
Well, I think there's what.
Well, and there's even go ahead.
The cop Sybil is trying to help the little girl, and she has her own motivations and trying to help Rose. But my question is, like, why does Rose even think about running away from the police? She's being followed by the cop, and then she's like, I'm just gonna run. Like,
yeah.
She has no reason to run.
Yeah.
If anything, that makes her more suspicious. So the cop's definitely gonna try to catch her and handcuff her.
And then when the cop does like catch her and handcuffs her and everything, they have this moment where they're talking about it. And she's like, "Why aren't you listening to me?" And the cop's like, "Well, 2 years ago, some dude kidnapped a kid and threw him down a mine shaft, and I stayed with the kid for days, and we were rescued, and blah 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 blah." And I can get that. And she's like, "I don't even know if the kid's yours." First time you saw her, she's sitting there saying, "Mommy, help me with this. Mommy, do this. Mommy, do that." You know the kid is her mom. Like that's just so dumb.
That she's the kid's mom.
Yeah. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, I don't know. I am also wondering why Rose doesn't ask her husband for help because I feel like they'd benefit working
Oh,
together.
yeah, seriously. Like, I
Uh,
don't know if there's some of the marriage issues that they didn't show happening. And, like, the cops even brought up, like, oh, usually with this kind of things, it's usually the wife hates the husband and she drives off with her kid.
one I did find out that speaking of the cops and stuff, so Sean Bean and the officer, like those scenes where they're working together, they seemed really out of place and they kind of slow the pacing of the movie down. They slowed the
Yeah.
movie down. There's only like one scene with them in it that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But I found out behind the scenes that uh the scenes with the male characters, like the officers and Sean Bean, were actually added later because the studio didn't think there was enough men in the movie. They thought it was too
They didn't
women
want
focused, which I think is really stupid. Um,
to.
but apparently that's why they kind of feel out of place, is because they're actually originally weren't supposed to be there, so they wrote those
I
scenes to
honestly
be
could
added
see
in.
that, and that's probably why a lot of these motivations don't make sense because the motivations were added into after
Mhm.
the movie was being worked on because it really just seemed weird.
Well, and
It's-
as far as like the scene I really liked with Sean Bean and the officer, it's a scene when they're in the school and when they're coming outside of the school, it shows Sean Bean walking one way and there's this awesome camera shot of them sideways. And then it switches to the nightmare realm of Silent Hill and it shows Rose running in the same area, the opposite direction. And when she runs past the same spot that Sean Bean is
He
standing,
smells her perfume.
yeah, he like smells her perfume, but he kind of stops for a second, like he feels her in that area. But it's a cool camera shot where it's like a side
Oh
view of
yeah.
them, and it shows her running, and then it cuts and shows him, then cuts, and I don't know.
It's
It's a
it's
really,
beautiful. Honestly, like a lot of the cinematography in this movie is amazing. It is so beautiful.
yeah,
It
absolutely,
builds a lot of tension. It's very much it's not necessarily John Carpenter style of tension building, but it's got a kind of similar vibe to it where it just like a lot of the shots just make you like feel something or make you feel a sense of dread or a sense of longing or whatever it is
yeah.
and it's beautiful.
Well, as far as like the cinematography and camera angles, I also agree they were well done. And some of the camera angles are actually really reminiscent and same camera angles from like the original game.
Yeah.
The first time she enters the Nightmare Realm and she's running through an alley and it shows an above view of her run and turn a corner. That's like the same camera angle from that same
Oh,
alley.
nice.
And she ends up coming up to the fence with the corpse that's on it that's still
Uh-huh.
alive. That's like lifted right out of the game.
That's awesome.
Uh, which a lot of the creatures, actually every creature except one, was lifted out of the game.
Yeah.
They all looked really good.
Oh, I love the creature
The uh,
design. The creatures were creepy as shit.
the creatures that kind of bothered me a little bit. I love the design of like the kid creatures that are like
Yeah.
wailing, but that you could tell that scene the CGI was a little dated. It
Hmm.
didn't quite fit well, but I love the character design.
Well, the one
And
thing I didn't like about that scene in particular was like they were keeping up with her when she was running, but then when she's on her knees, barely crawling on the floor, getting like less than 4 feet away, they're going slow now. Like I really hate when everything changes pace and then they all change pace together both ways. Like if a creature's sprinting at you to try to kill you, they're not gonna stop just because you stop.
well, and I found a lot of the scenes that had the creatures in them in those nightmare scenes, they were scary moments that were just there to scare. They were meant to
Yeah.
give tension. I don't feel like she was ever in any real danger except for some of like the pyramid head scenes. But there's also not much meaning behind the creatures in this game or
Hmm.
in this movie. In the game, each creature resembled a different type of trauma. A lot of the first game, it was from uh the nightmares, like the trauma from the little girl that was named Cheryl in the game, and she's like Alessa and whatnot, and born out of her
Okay.
issues. But in this one, I mentioned one character design that was not lifted from the games,
Yeah.
and that would be there's the janitor creature, which I really enjoyed that design. There's in the bathroom, the janitor comes
Oh,
crawling
yeah,
out of
yeah,
the stall there, and his feet are bent behind and wrapped with barbed wire
yeah.
to
Uh-huh.
his head. Uh, that's actually the only creature in the movie that was not
in the
from the
games.
game. It's an
Okay.
original made creature for that movie.
One of the other creatures that I really love, but I didn't necessarily love the scene. I love the way the blind nurses look. Uh,
Oh yeah, the scene with all the nurses.
yeah, like it's honestly when the scene starts, it's really cool. It's really vibrant. She gets told that she gets this light, and she gets told that you'll need the light to progress down there, but you also the light will lure them towards you.
Hmm.
And so she's holding the light, and she notices all these nurses are coming at her towards the light, so she turns off the light. Then all the nurses stop moving. Then she gets halfway through them, and then all of a sudden they just go manic. And I'm
Well,
like, that doesn't make any sense. And it might make sense for people who know the game, but because they stopped when the light was off and start when the light's on, and then they start going manic and start killing each other, and she's like barely escapes. But then she turns the light on again, and they immediately go right back to the light. So I'm
well,
like, the light thing didn't actually have rules if you're gonna go against
if
them.
if you notice in that scene, they started attacking her because I think she brushed into one of them or she made enough of a noise that it attracted them. So they're attracted to the light, and then from that scene, out of context, they never say it out
Hmm.
loud. But out of the context, it's they're also lured to sound as well. So she's like being very quiet and kind of sneaking through them like a maze. And the second that she accidentally makes a wrong move, they start swinging wildly.
See, and like I tried watching that scene like a couple different times to try to see like I didn't necessarily see her bump anything, and I don't think that she necessarily made any noise. Maybe she let a louder breath than usual or something that I just didn't catch, or maybe I just didn't see something. But it just felt so weird because of the rules of the light, and I'm like,
Yeah,
why bring up the rules of the light if it's not going to be about the light, and they're
yeah,
going to go towards zone two?
they made it a point to talk about the light, and then
Yeah,
some of the back to the visual effects. I think the effects of the town changing to its nightmare state is
oh,
really
it's so
cool.
cool.
Watching the walls melt, and it actually didn't do that in the original game.
Oh,
In the
okay.
original game, it would go between a normal Silent Hill with the gray fog and snow instead of ash.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I understand why they changed it to ash because it was a cool story beat having the cool fire underneath the
See,
town.
actually, yeah, like that makes a lot
Um,
of sense to me. If it was snow in this, that would have been kind of
well,
weird.
yeah, in the original, it's just snow
Oh,
and
okay.
fog. But the Nightmare Realm in the original, it would just like fade to it and he'd go into different areas. But what I love about the visual effects in this one, when it shows the walls like melting and peeling apart, that actually inspired all the games that came after this movie took that style.
Yeah.
So, and it actually improved. I don't want to say it maybe improved, but it inspired the transition to the
And
nightmare version.
there's one thing that I'm a little confused about, and maybe you can shed some light on this. But one of the things that I was getting really confused after the movie is it almost like, and I didn't catch this at first, but they said that everyone in Silent Hill in the town, like in the church and everything, they were all damned
Mhm.
and already dead.
Yeah.
So were her and Sharon were Rose and Sharon already dead before they actually made it to Silent Hill? Did they die in that car crash before they go to
Yeah.
Silent Hill?
I think in the movie, I think that's what it kind of implies. But it's also weird. Like it's very convoluted and not explained well because at the end of the movie, they're still within the night, like within Silent Hill's realm when they get back to their house. It's still all
Yeah.
foggy and creepy. So I think it implies that they're dead, but then it kind of retcons it with the sequel because apparently Rose finds a way to get her daughter out of the nightmare realm,
Oh, weird.
out of Silent Hill. So it's really unclear whether they're dead or they're just trapped in Silent Hill
Yeah,
as a
because
realm. It's unclear.
when he goes to Silent Hill, like those scenes are really cool, but it was weird because like he was in the real world and she wasn't, and she never went into Silent Hill in the real world. She
Hmm.
was only there when it was
After
the
that crash.
nightmare realm. And same with the cop. She arrived after the crash too. And so I'm like, okay, well they died then probably because they're dead, and she's sitting across from her husband
Well,
at the end of the movie, and it's
they're
almost so
not there. Like
yeah,
it's really confusing too because in a flashback, it does show that the cop that is helping Sean Bean, he burned his hands helping save or
yeah,
try to save Alessa for
yeah,
through fire, but yet he is still in the real world, and
yeah.
all the rest are damned and dead within Silent Hill. So it is very convoluted and kind of ambiguous, but
Yeah, those are like some of the things that were just confusing for me. And don't get me wrong, I thought the ending of the movie was stunningly beautiful. I thought them going to the house and giving you that, oh, they're going to have that reconnection,
Mhm.
and then not have the reconnection was haunting. It was beautifully shot,
Oh yeah.
beautifully done. Like, yeah, I swear, I cannot tell you the color differences between the two scenes, but like seeing them on top of each other, or overlapping each other at times was so gorgeous and one of the best. Like, I don't know, I fangirl over that stuff so much in movies when they just have some of the most beautiful cinematography, and I'm like,
Mhm.
man,
There,
whoever thought of that was brilliant.
there are also, unfortunately, sometimes in this movie, especially when Rose is walking around Silent Hill in the, I guess, daytime, or like not the
Mhm.
nightmare version. When she's walking in the fog, sometimes it is very glaring that she is against a green screen.
Yeah,
Uh, and I mean, there are some other visual moments where it's like, that's a little funky and whatnot, but uh, I think it was really
it was still
well
early
done, and there are
2000s.
some very like visceral effect scenes. The scene that the pyramid head rips that girl's skin right
Oh
off her,
gosh,
that scene is just insane.
I was not expecting that at all. When he grabs her and he grabs and twists her skin and then just rips off, I was like, "What?"
Yeah, it's
Like,
like holy shit.
what?
I heard a behind the scenes because he ends up throwing the skin and blood splatters all over Rose.
Yeah.
So apparently, Rada Mitchell, when she was filming, uh, since she had to be getting like constantly covered in blood, and as she progresses through the movie, she gets more and more, her colors turn red and
Uh-huh.
icky. Apparently, during the whole filming process, the actress did not wash her hair once because
Oh
she
no.
wanted to keep continuity up,
Oh,
and
that's
I
good,
think that's
honestly.
really creative. I I bet that really sucked. I bet afterwards she washed her hair for like 3 hours straight. But
Yeah. Oh, one of
um,
the other things that I loved about this is like talking about like that ending kind of like scene or whatever, when she is looking at the map of the hospital and they're telling her to like memorize it. It felt very video gamey to me. It felt like, oh, here's the map that you get to see like in this one spot in this one location only, but now you have to go and memorize everything and use it
yeah,
yourself. And I was like, that is brilliant. And I love that there is certain times in this movie where it felt like it was a video game.
oh
There's a
yeah,
lot
absolutely.
of this, and like David said, like they had a lot of the same shots from the video game stuff. And me not even knowing that, I still felt very video game oriented when some of the things in this movie.
Yeah. And then as far as story beats, here's like a comparison that I think works for the movie for the most part, but it is one glaring difference story beat wise, where Alessa's nightmares in the game are what consume the town with her feelings and whatnot and all of those
Hmm.
manifestations. Whereas that's not really how it is in the movie. I mean, Alessa is a big part
Yeah.
of why the town is cursed because the cult burnt her alive, and I think the cult has a big issue to do with it too.
Yeah.
But they made the movie, instead of like the whole nightmares and like meaning behind the demons and wanting to summon a demon and whatnot, they made it more of a witch story where it
Yeah.
had like a coven witch background to it, which is fine, but it's definitely a huge difference and contrast to the
Okay.
game.
See, and that for me, like, I didn't necessarily mind the witch thing. I thought it was a little weird, and I thought like the Sharon being like when she goes full dark and she accepts the Dark One's help or whatever,
Hmm.
and like a light version of her is born and they send her out in the real world.
See,
Like that was a little weird to me, and that ends up being Sharon, and that's why Sharon and Alyssa look the exact same,
well,
and they
in
are
the
the same character basically.
well, like in the game, uh, it is a similar story, whereas in this one, it is the whole witch background.
Okay.
In the game, instead of the cult burning her because they think she's a witch,
Hmm.
the cult actually uses Alessa to try and summon a demon through her,
Hmm.
and Alyssa resists, and her innocent half breaks off and becomes Cheryl,
Oh,
who
okay.
Harry ends up adopting. So it's a very
Interesting.
similar story beat where like a light innocent half they
Okay.
split, and then
Okay.
Alessa is stuck in the village. But it's the the cult is trying to summon a demon through her instead of
Interesting.
burning her alive for being a witch.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Well, I will say though, I really did love the story of Alyssa and Sharon and like all of the things that happened with that. I thought it was really awesome. I thought
yeah.
the scene of her being burned alive on a metal gel with the cult symbol on it was crazy as hell. And like that barbed wire monstrosity that she becomes at the end of the movie
Oh yeah,
is
with all those.
so cool.
Oh
And when
man,
the way she kills a
when she
lot
like
of the
rips the
townspeople,
cult leader in half with the barbed
yeah, like
wire,
puts the barbed
and
wire like up her like vagina asshole and then through her stomach and then rips her in half and then grabs another guy and wraps it all the way around him and squeezes him into a ball until he blows up. Like for some of this, it's visceral and brutal as hell. It's gross. It's awesome. It's amazing. Like I can't say enough about it. Like I was like, whoa.
I will say that one of the more important, I guess, not really creatures, but people kind of
Hmm.
mixed, that was in the game that didn't get as much light in the movie. Was there's the nurse that is helping Alessa at the end, her eyes
Oh,
that are bleeding.
yeah.
She's a much bigger part in the video game than she is in the movie,
Yeah,
which
and
is unfortunate. She's there because I mean it's like, oh, she's from the
I was
game,
really confused why
but
they were showing her and why they were really like because when they do have her in there, there's a scene where she's always has her back to Rose, and there's a scene where it shows a shot of the nurse's face with Rose in the background, and it's right when Alyssa hugs Rose and like maybe like goes inside of her or something, and then it seems like the nurse is like scared of what's happening, and she's like, oh God," and she like is like really is like seems terrified, and I was like, what is this? Like, what is going on right
it's
here?
not really explained. Whereas in the game, like it's basically they pulled that scene out of the game because there's a scene where it
Hmm.
shows the nurse crying blood, and I
Okay.
mean it's there because hey, that's something that'll remind you this it was a
Yeah, and
game,
I
you
know
know.
they bring up like she was the nurse that first looked in on her or whatever.
Yeah, and her eye, like
Yeah.
her eyes got basically taken from her because of
Yeah,
that.
because of what she saw. And I really, one of the things I did love, I loved at the end of the movie because the mother of Alyssa wonders, like, hey, what's going on? Like, why didn't my daughter kill me and everything like that? And there's a line that is reiterated, I think, two or three times throughout this movie is mothers are gods in the eyes of children.
Hmm.
And I love that, especially because it's like she saved you because in your eyes you've always been like there, like you were still like part of her life. You were still the one that she should keep alive. Like she shouldn't kill. She,
Hmm.
no matter how much she might have hated you for the decision of letting them do what they did, you didn't necessarily want that yourself. And so I don't blame you for the things that they did.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I really like that line over, and I think the line delivery of it was really cool.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess do you have many? I have a few final
Oh, go
thoughts
for
towards
it.
the end, but I didn't know if you had
I
anything
don't
else.
necessarily think so.
Um, I guess the game, I guess for the mainstream audience, the games can be very confusing, and they definitely are. So I think the movie is trying to make it more mainstream to kind of pull people in, which I think it does a really good job of. But sometimes the writing is, you know, unfocused and a little unpolished at times. And I think it's because they're trying to like focus on the mainstream. Uh, and I think the movie can at points feel really shallow if you're trying to compare it to the game because the game does have a
Hmm.
lot to it. The movie
Okay.
does feel a little bit more shallow, but it is still a movie that I think is worth the watch. You definitely should watch it. But if you are also interested in the lore, I really suggest playing through the first two or three games. Make your pick. I think the first one and two are worth playing. The third one is also really good, but I'd say check out the movie. It's really
Yeah.
good.
I think if you're going into this, even if you're not a fan of Silent Hill, I think you can really enjoy this. I think you will have to know that the first third of this movie is pretty bad. It's pretty slow. It's not well done. It's not well paced. Not well written.
Yeah.
Not a lot of good motivations. But once it gets to the Silent Hill parts of this, it is the last, especially the last act of this movie, is phenomenal. It's such a satisfying ending. It makes me want more. It definitely was like, wow, like this is what. video game movies should be, and I've really, really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was Silent Hill. We will see you next time.
What is the next time? Did we even say that earlier?
I did not, because I don't know. Let me look.
Bum, bum, bum.
The next episode will be
The Lodge.
The Lodge, which
Oh
is
God.
your bad pick.
Yep, I'm not ready to watch that again.
So we will see you next time with The Lodge. Thank you for joining us for Silent Hill.